Hey guys, welcome back to the Journey Garden. Today's topic is going to be about chicks and incubating them. So let's get started. All right, so I have a few things here and I will kind of go through them and kind of tell you what I use to set up my brooder and my incubator and everything. So the first thing you're gonna need once they're born is gonna be their brooder and then their food, and you also are going to need shavings. So let's show you what I use. So this is the homemade brooder that I made, not really super fancy, and I didn't clean it off, and the reason is because I want to show you just how dirty they are. So you have to think about that whenever you bring chicks into your house. There will be a lot of dust, and so wherever you put it, there's going to be a thick layer of dust near beside it. See right here on the speaker, there's a ton of dust, and there's a lot of dust here. So that's one thing you got to think about, where you're going to put it. It's going to have a lot of dust, and it also needs to be a very well ventilated area. So I have just my normal, it's a really big size, like Rubbermaid container. And what I did, if you can see it, I cut the edge or the middle of it out, and then I put this hardware cloth in with zip ties, and I did that to leave it open so that they have plenty of ventilation. And so what I used to do is I used to just have a lamp, a heating lamp that just sat right on it, and that was really nice. But I'm a little bit afraid of heating lamps. They're kind of dangerous, and now I have them outside with my goats at nighttime. So I've been using, instead of a heating lamp, I've been using a heating plate. And this one is a very big one. The one I use for my baby chicks are it's much smaller than this. But basically what it is it hooks up into the wall, and this plate right here gets really warm. And these are adjustable, so you just push this in and you can make it shorter or lower. And you want it to just be like real short in the beginning, so the chicks can just get it in there and get out when they need to. And as the chicks get bigger, it basically grows with them. So another thing you're gonna need is gonna be your pine shavings. This one happens to be Fresh Flakes. Now, you don't have to get this brand. You can get any brand. They have really small shavings. They have the bigger shavings. For the little babies, I like to use this thicker one. See, it's kind of got the thick flakes in it. They make a smaller flake that I actually like for my bigger chicks. Once they get as big as these guys are ready to go outside actually. And then what you'll do is you'll put that in there, change it out every few days, because chicks poop a lot, and they also are very messy and they get food and water everywhere all the time. And then so after they've been eating, well, let's go to eating first and then I'll show you the chick grit. So there's this chick starter. My dog's back there, she's probably gonna say hi. And I've used all different brands. Get whatever you can, try to stick with the same one so the chicks don't get an upset stomach. So the reason I want to show you these different brands and different types is because you have just the Ranch Pro. It's just a regular, I got this at Atwoods. It's just a regular plain old chick feed, nothing super special about it. Chick feed comes in crumbles, and then it usually tells you if it's medicated or not medicated. And what that means is it has this stuff in it that is called Improlium. And so what it does is, it's not necessarily a medication for coccidia, but what it does is it helps the chicks build up their immune system against coccidia, because chickens and chicks can get very sick and die from coccidia very quickly. So once you put them outside, you want their immune system to be strong, and you want them to have that immunity from the coccidia. And then once they actually get coccidia, if they do get it, then you actually have to treat it with a different medication like Corid or something like that, to help them get rid of it. This doesn't actually treat it. This just helps build up their immune system, kind of like a vaccine. Like a vaccine would. So it's your choice whether you choose medicated or non-medicated. I've used both. They say that if you get them vaccinated, you're not supposed to use medicated crumbles because it can cancel out the vaccine. I don't know about all that. Do your own research, figure out what works for you, and do that. So this is actually what I usually use, Purina. I love the Purina food for the adults and for the chicks. This is medicated crumble too. So again, just get some kind of chick starter or chick feed. And I like Purina. I've used these other brands too. They're all really great. This I got from Tractor Supply. And then this one is a little bit fancier. It's the organic, non-GMO Nature Smart, which is really great too. Again, they all do what they're supposed to do. They all work really well. This one, I believe, is non-medicated. It typically will tell you if it's medicated or non-medicated. And then you just want to make sure that they have plenty of fresh food and water out at all times, because they do eat a lot. And then you want to also get some chick grit. And so you can get any kind of chick grit. This is the one, Mana Pro, that's usually available to me, so that's what I use. I don't usually put it out until they're at least a week to 2 weeks old. But the reason I do that is because what you want to do is you want them to know that this is their food. So you leave it out there for a week to 2 weeks, because once you introduce them to this, you don't want them just sitting there eating this. So if they have this and they don't know that this is their food, they'll just eat this and eat this and eat this, and they're not really getting any food in their stomach, so they can get sick. So just make sure that they know what their feed is, and then after a week or 2 weeks, then you can give them the chick grit. And do your own research. Again, some people start their chicks later on chick grit, like a month old, and then some of them start it immediately. So you just figure out what works for you. And then we'll talk about the incubator. All right, so you can see these guys right here. They're actually about 2 months old. They're ready to go outside. They've actually been ready to go outside, but the problem we have here is it's been about 30 degrees every day. So you have to decide when you're going to start putting them outside. Are you going to wait for them to get a little bit for it to get warmer outside, or are you going to go ahead and let them be house chickens? So that's up to you. I can't do house chickens because of this critter right here, my cutie patootie Maddie. She likes to eat the little baby chickens, so we can't do house chickens. But they're safe up here, and this actually can lock on, and so when it's locked on, which it usually is, I just fed them, when it locks on, she can't get to them at all because this will not come off. So anyways, what you have to do is get them used to being outside when it's cold out by letting them stay out a few hours every day, and you increase. First you'll start out with 1 or 2 hours, and then you'll do 3 or 4 hours. And then after several days and they're getting acclimated to it, you'll continue to increase that time until they can be out there all day. It's just really hard because right now at nighttime it gets super, super cold, and it's raining, and it's supposed to rain all week. And silkies cannot tolerate being wet and cold. They can tolerate being cold, but they cannot tolerate being wet and cold, because that's when they start to get sick, or at least in my experience, that's been the case. So let's talk about incubators. So these are my 2 incubators that I use. This one was recommended to me, actually someone that I watch, Appalachian Homestead with Patera, recommended the Magic Fly. And then this one is one that I found on eBay, which it works decent. There are a couple of flaws that I've found with it, but it works pretty well. So this one, you'll see it has the buttons on here that you can set how warm you want it in there. This one does not have with a gauge that tells you the humidity, and it's actually pretty important to know that. So what I ended up doing, and of course I don't have it with me, is I got one of these tiny little round humidity gauges that also has a temperature gauge, and I left it on the inside just so I would know that. So this comes apart so that you can wash it. This is good to have in here because it helps prevent them from slip sliding around whenever they're born. and then you put water in the middle here to keep the humidity up. And this will hold, I would say, about 11 eggs comfortably, or if they're the regular size eggs, you might only get 9 in there. I guess it just depends, because I have my little humidity gauge in there too, and so there's usually about 1 less egg that you can fit in there. But Silkie eggs, since they're bantams, their eggs are smaller, so I can fit a little bit more in there. So in here, you have all kinds of things. You have where you can change the humidity, the high and low settings for the temperature, and it actually counts down and tells you like what day you're on. Chicks, usually they go 21 days. I've heard that Silkies in particular, they go to 20 days and then they hatch. But either way, you want to keep them at the right temperature and humidity, and it's usually for about 21 days. And you also have to turn them, just like a mama hen would. There's my dog coming to see what's going on. Just like a mama hen would turn their chicks or their eggs every day, you're gonna have to be the mama hen, and you're gonna have to do the turning. Well, that's in this one. In this one, this neat little yellow thing right here, it turns them every day for you, so you don't have to do that. It's set up to do it every few hours, which works out really great, because that's less time that you are opening and closing the top, because the more that you open and close the top, the more likely you run the risk of you letting too much heat and humidity out and potentially shrink wrapping the chicks. So that is what I love about this. Now, usually on about day 17, what you're gonna do is you're gonna take this out, and Maddie, you're so curious, get back, and there's no chicks in there for you, I promise. You're gonna take this out, and you're gonna lay the eggs right here, and that way that you're not messing with the humidity or anything, and they get in position to be ready to be hatched. Now, one flaw that I have found with this, get back baby, is that you see there's these little spaces right here. What I end up doing once I take this egg turner out is I stick I actually have bubble wrap that I wrap up and I tape into balls, and I put in each one of these little compartments or something in there to make sure that they can't fall down in there. I actually, the first time I used this, had a chick fall in here, and there was a little bit of water from the condensation because of the humidity, and it instantly drowned. So learned the hard way on that one. Another neat thing about this, I don't know how well you can see, but those little dots in the middle, is an LED light, and it's supposed to be for candling the eggs. Now, the only problem with that is that when it comes on, they all just like come on at the same time, and they're all so bright that they kind of make it to where you can't tell the difference between each egg, and they all just look like lit up eggs. You can't tell which ones actually are viable embryos and which ones aren't, so you still end up having to candle them. And usually I take them out and candle them at about day 7 or 10, somewhere in there. And then whenever I put them on lockdown, usually I do that on day 17, so either on day 14 or day 17 I candle them for the second time, and then that's it, because I don't like to open and close the door, because I don't like to let the humidity and heat out. Now, with this, another really neat thing, on the back here, it has a little hole, if you can see that, and it comes with this tiny little squirt bottle with like a long thing that sticks in here, and the little spout just squirts the water in there. So with this one, to refill the water, you have to actually take it out, take the top off, and then put it back on. With this, you don't have to do that. All you have to do is just put the little spout of the squirt bottle in there, and it fills it up. And then if you do overfill it, there's a tiny, right there, that little bitty circle, there's a tiny little thing, and it'll start leaking out. So you just kind of have to keep an eye that you're not filling it up too much, and then keeping an eye on your humidity to kind of see where you're at. so here we go. Candle and some eggs. Okay, can you see? It's got a pretty good air sac. And then I'm not sure if you can see or not. Where are you at? There you are. There are some veins forming in there. It's just hard to show that. Alright, so you can see this one is not viable. Let's see how the whole thing lines up. And there is an air sac in there, but this one didn't form. So there's also a ring in there, a single ring of a blood, it's a vein, and that's called a ring of death. So that one is not viable, which is the one that was not viable last time. So I'm just double checking. See the air sac. It's looking good. Just pulling a couple of random ones. There's an air sac right there. And then I think we're good. Alright guys, so a little bit of education here. Whenever you are incubating eggs, see there's a little baby that's just hatched right here. It's kind of hard to see, but there's one in there, and then that one right there is pipping when they start cracking the hole to get ready to be born. And then this guy over here is zipping. So after they pip their first hole, then they start zipping, which is basically what it sounds like, unzipping it all the way around to make that hole so that the shell looks like that, so that they're able to be born out of the shell. So another little bit of chick incubation education. This one just hatched just now. Alright, so baby number 2 is just born. So that's super exciting. Now, once these guys are actually hatched, they're going to stay in the incubator. In my opinion, it's best practice to leave them in there for 24 to 48 hours. And the reason is because they need to dry off, and it also keeps them in a warm location, which they have to be kept under, either under a chicken mama outside, or in here they would stay under a light or a heating plate, which is what I have for them. Now they don't need any food for that 24 to 48 hours because they will absorb the rest of their yolk sac. So they will be all right. All right, so we got some more action going on. We got another baby born. So that makes 3. And then this guy's unzipping his shell. So hopefully he'll be born soon. We got, this one is pipping for sure. I don't know how well you can see that on the camera. Then this one is pipping as well. And sometimes it's hard to see because they do the underside instead of the top. But one thing that I did notice, so it looks like this kid is gray. Don't know, this kid was literally just born a little bit ago. Looks white, but I guess we'll see once he dries out. And then this kid right here, if you see, there are black spots. So I think this could either be a paint or a splash. So that's very exciting to see. And they're taking a little break. They're super, super tired, as you can see. Oh, I just heard the side crack. Working away at the egg. Come on, little one. Alrighty, well that's it for now. Now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Happy birthday, little fella. This one just hatched. So another thing that I forgot to mention earlier, I know, was that another reason that you don't want to open the incubator while everyone is hatching is because there will be such a drastic change in the humidity and the temperature, because the eggs, they have their outer shell and then they have the little membrane. I don't know if you can see it very well, but there's like a membrane inside the egg. You see that right there, the little membrane? And it will actually shrink wrap and kill them if there is a sudden drop in humidity and temperature. So that's another thing to know about incubating chickens. Oh my goodness. Happy birthday, baby. Happy birthday. Look, your friend's about to be born right alongside you. And we got another one right there. I don't know if you can see it. And we got one pipping. Two pipping. Couple more pipping anyways. Hi, little baby. Alright guys, so on about day 20, you want to have your brooder set up ready and turned on, because you want to be able, once they're out and ready to come to the brooder, out of their eggs, you need to have the brooder heating source turned on so that it's ready and warm whenever they've been in the incubator for at least a day. So this is what I do, and sorry it's a little bit messy. So of course, fresh feed, you always want to have fresh feed, and then pine shavings, or you can put paper towels, and then you want a shallow water source for the first few days until they get used to it. So what I have done, and I've seen people put rocks or marbles in a bowl, a shallow dish, and that's fine. Hey babies. We have this little seashell, and we just put it in this little bitty dish. It's like a little Plan Your Woman dish that I use specifically for the chicks, and fill it with water and keep it filled up. And then I also, if you notice, I put some of the feed into the shavings, because they don't know to automatically come over to the feeder to eat. So I put a little bit around the outside of the brooder plate, so that they'll eat it. And then, see, that one's eating. And then I kind of keep them, everything kind of close to the heating plate, because they're gonna just be under there for a few days. And this will kind of encourage them to, oh my goodness, to come over and start eating. And then they watch me. I'll just pour it out of here, and then whenever I do that, sometimes they'll come running and sometimes they don't. And you don't have to use a brooder plate. You can use like the big lamp that like hangs. If you do that, there's a little bit more of a risk of fire with that. So I prefer the brooder plates, or the heating plates. The other thing is that you have to have it so many inches away, the light so many inches away, and they, of course, regardless if you have the plate or if you have the lamp, they have to have space over here to be able to get away from the heat source, so that when they get too hot, they can come over here and cool off. And you'll know if they're too hot or too cold, or if they're just right, because under the heat lamp, if they're all clumped together under the light, then they're too cold. The light's too far away. If they're a little bit dispersed and some of them are out, some of them are in the light, then that's probably just right. If they're all over here in this area away from the heating light, then that means that it's too close and they're too hot. So you need to back the light away a little bit. So anyway, I'm gonna open this right here and let you take a look at the babies. Hi, babies. So these are silkies, and that's all that I raise. And you can see we have several colors. We have white, and then we have the ones with the black spots on them, which is called paint. See that guy right there? And then we have this one that's actually not black. It's not really picking it up that great on camera. It's gray. And then we have this kid right here who I think is gonna be lavender. And then there's another splash. So we have some whites, a gray, splash, and a lavender. So they are super cute. They're only a couple of days old now, and they all kind of were born on different days. The first few were born, and then a couple days later the rest of them were born.